Hello, and it's Saturday, October the 3rd, 2020. Welcome to YouTube number 100 in this series exposing the Jesuit Vatican shadow empire as the true cause of all revolution, genocide, and war for the last 500 years, and the one and only candidate for the fourth beast system or empire described in the prophetic books of the Bible, Daniel and Revelation. If you are a first-time or recent visitor to this channel and are new to the subject of the Jesuit military order of Rome and its control over the nations, then I urge you to take the time and go back to my video number 1 and work your way through 108 videos on the history of the Jesuits. Then and only then will you come to understand why the world is on the brink of a disaster so monumental it dwarfs the human imagination. Please also visit my website at darknessisfalling.com, where you'll find a wealth of documents, videos, and blogs related to the pagan Roman Catholic Empire. In this video, I want to talk about Donald J. Trump and the psychological operation he is, and the chaos that is rising right now in the USA. This info is not just for Americans, but is pertinent to everyone, everywhere. I believe that when America falls, it will be the big domino that brings all the other dominoes or nations down. It'll be like a chain reaction. If you are currently caught up in the election farce, this U.S. election farce, and believe in the political theater you see on TV, then you'd better listen and wake up. It's all fake. I know it's hard to believe, but it's all fake. It's all staged. All these politicians are paid actors maintaining the Jesuits' house of illusions, smoke and mirrors. That's all politics is, smoke and mirrors. No one is free. No one, not you or me. We're not free. We've been led into this illusion that we are free. We are not free. Democracy doesn't exist. It never has. We've been living in a soft fascist form of existence since the end of the Second World War. What we're living in is a very carefully cultivated fiction, a matrix of fictions using fake voting and elections. This is really important to get your head around. Before I get to Trump, I need to lay down a bit of an historical framework which puts Trump and the American government into proper perspective. The question is, does America have a real government, or is it just a facade left in place to deceive the American people? Another pertinent question is this: is Trump really a president with any power, or just a puppet figurehead? We've been led to believe that the 20th century was the American century. But was it? Was it the American century? Or was it the Roman century? It was the Romans, the Roman Catholic Empire, that has been pulling the strings behind all the events that have occurred in the 20th century. And it was the century of blood. We've never seen anything like it in human history. More deaths, more bloodshed, more violence in the 20th century than in any other century from the beginning of time. And that's why. That's because the Jesuits were behind it all, creating the mayhem and chaos and socially re-engineering the world into the Luciferian image. This is really important to understand. So really, the American Empire was used as a weapon against the rest of the world to reshape it and remold it into the beast empire that is now rising around us. I want to start off by reminding listeners that world history for the last 5 centuries is not comprehensible unless the hidden hand of the Jesuit military order of Rome is recognized as the aggressive and malicious force shaping social histories on every continent. Any attempt to understand history as the serendipitous or chance progressive actions of men in an evolutionary social collective sense alone cannot explain the endless series of conflicts and violence that have no clear explanation as to causality. When you can get your head around this, then you'll understand the extent, the depth to which the reality that we have been taught is a total lie. It's a total deception. It's important to grasp that America and its form of government was created by its Masonic or deistic founders, many of whom had received Jesuit humanist educations from Jesuit institutions in Europe. So these are Jesuit trained men working according to humanist principles. America wasn't founded on a biblical foundation, contrary to what many Americans believe, but on classical Greek humanist principles. The founding fathers understood the dangers of the papacy, the Jesuits and their machinations, but realized that to establish a vibrant society, civic and religious freedom had to be allowed. This is the loophole in the Constitution the Jesuits and Luciferians exploited in setting up shop in the USA. The papacy was in fact covertly involved in the formation of the New World from the very beginning. The White House is named after Andrew White, a Jesuit who owned the land it is built on. The Potomac was originally called the Tiber, and Maryland was dedicated to the pagan goddess Ishtar, renamed Mary. Roman culture can be seen everywhere in the USA, particularly in the architecture of government and Masonic buildings. You can see the Roman pillars, the Roman design, the Greek design, Roman design, the classical tradition of architecture everywhere. The Jesuits' American Kingdom, or New Atlantis as it was called, was created for destruction, ultimately. In their plan for world dominion, America had to be created and destroyed. That's what is happening right now. America is crumbling. America is being dismantled day by day in front of our eyes. The Jesuits have succeeded in their plans, and it only took them 244 years to do it. Talk about pure satanic persistence in order to achieve their goals. Now, if you want to get a good handle on what has happened to America and why, a great book to read, and I recommend this strongly, is Rulers of Evil by F. Tupper Saucy, written in 1999, published in 1999. It's a great book for showing how the Jesuits were involved in the formation of America right from the beginning. And I'll leave a link to the PDF of Rulers of Evil, and you can download that for free It's a great book to read. I highly recommend it. The Jesuits hate America and its people because of its civil and religious freedoms. Continually revised textbook histories omit massive amounts of essential details that would have exposed the Luciferian cabal and rung alarm bells. It is only in the 20th century that the picture becomes clearer that the hidden force behind world politics, economics, education, and culture is driving mankind through social engineering toward a false unity, a one-world government and religion. The first indication of a grand plan by a hidden hand is the establishment of the League of Nations in 1920. For anyone with eyes to see, this is the pivotal event that really signifies the beginning of the end. The first nail in the coffin of any kind of free world or democratic social system for mankind. I need to highlight very significant events in the 20th century that enabled the Jesuits eventually, through Roman business corporations and Vatican world government agencies, to take control of all national governments and all systems essential to human life, like water, food, and energy supplies. The Jesuits today control the skies, all land, all resources, and through their media propaganda ministry worldwide, the minds of men. Just prior to 1920, we have the fake Spanish flu pandemic, which raged for 2 years but wasn't a viral epidemic as claimed, nor did it have anything to do with Spain. This mass genocide was caused by a mass vaccination event of soldiers and civilians on a worldwide scale, mandated by the forerunner of the World Health Organization, or WHO. Now, Wikipedia states, and I quote, a little bit of history about the WHO and how this Spanish flu occurred. And I quote, "The International Sanitary Conferences, originally held on 23rd of June 1851, were the first predecessors of the WHO, a series of 14 conferences that lasted from 1851 to 1938. The International Sanitary Conferences worked to combat many diseases, chief among them cholera, yellow fever, and the bubonic plague, or the Black Death. The conferences were largely ineffective until the 7th in 1892, when an international sanitary convention that dealt with cholera was passed. 5 years later, a convention for the plague was signed. Signed by who? Well, signed by many world governments. In part as a result of the successes of the conferences, the Pan-American Sanitary Bureau of 1902 and the Office International de Hygiène Publique of 1907 were soon founded. When the League of Nations was formed in 1920, they established the Health Organization of the League of Nations. After World War II, the United Nations absorbed all the other health organizations to form the World Health Organization, or the WHO. This is really important to understand. They tried from 1851 to 1920 to establish an agency that would control world health, not for the benefit of mankind, but to destroy, to control and destroy the health of mankind. And that is what has been occurring. This man-made vaccine-induced pandemic, the Spanish flu, killed up to 100 million people worldwide. Nobody knows the true numbers. Shaking the nations up, and it was used to push governments toward a unified world health strategy. It's very revealing that the nation of Greece refused to participate in the vaccine program, and there wasn't one death in the country, while people were dying like flies everywhere else. This information has been heavily suppressed and censored. So, the Spanish flu was caused by a mass vaccination program, not by a pandemic virus that came out of somewhere. It's claimed that it came from animals. This is where we start the fiction of viruses coming from animals. It's the Spanish flu between 1917 and 1920. And these lies, these myths about viruses have been perpetuated since that time. And people today believe this nonsense. World War I, the bloody 4-year Jesuit-contrived slaughter of the European Protestant men and women, and the war to end all wars finished in 1918, and this also catalyzed national governments toward greater cooperation in a world government for peace. In 1917, the Jesuits started their Bolshevik communist revolution in Russia against the Jews and Christians, funded by Roman Catholic Wall Street bankers like J.P. Morgan. This was the Jesuits' attempt to divide the world through fear of the communist menace and drive nations together through fear of the Red Terror. It worked, and in 1989 the East-West divide was crumbling externally. Russia and China were secretly working with the USA the whole time behind the scenes. So from 1917 through to 1989, this hoax, this communist hoax, not a hoax in the sense that communism didn't exist, but the hoax in that it was a world threat to democracy, which never existed anyways, was perpetuated by the Jesuits through the Cold War. It was used in many, many ways to reshape, socially engineer Russia and other parts of the world through revolution. The Jesuits are 100% behind this. They are the revolutionists, the revolutionaries. The Jesuit Cold War was a hoax to propel nations toward unification and a one-world government. It worked brilliantly. Now we see the Jesuits trying to start another Cold War between the USA and China. Excuse me. It's pure media fiction. Pure media fiction. In 1919, the International Labor Organization was established under the League of Nations, now under the United Nations, which was the beginning of the Jesuits' control of the labor unions and labor worldwide. The logo is a 3-section gear wheel with 6 teeth on each part. This gives you the B666 numerical designation. On the outside is the double Roman laurel wreath. In the middle of the gear wheel is the acronym ILO. You see, Rome, the Vatican, controls all the world agencies directing the affairs of mankind. This is now more than 100 years ago. And if you look at any of the Vatican agencies, the Vatican UN agencies, they all have the Roman laurel wreath or the gear wheel or some combination of elements that add up to 33. The logo of the United Nations is a flat earth map. Flat earth divided up into 33 sections and surrounded by a Roman laurel wreath. This tells you, sitting in plain sight, this tells you who controls the world. It is Rome. It's the Vatican. It's the Jesuits. Prior to all these events happening around 1920, The Federal Reserve Bank was covertly and illegally instituted in 1913 by a handful of Jesuit-controlled bankers and turncoat U.S. politicians, handing economic control of America and its money supply to the Vatican through the Vatican bankers. Once the Fed was established, the Jesuits proceeded to put a Vatican-controlled central bank based on usury in every country, taking control of the whole world's money markets. Every currency is controlled by the Jesuit order. This is why today the world is broken and in debt. Every nation is in debt to the Vatican world banks. All these major events between 1910 and 1920 set the stage for world control in the 20th century by the Jesuits working behind the scenes through a maze of Vatican-controlled world government agencies. Why is this history important? These major events set the stage early on for the Jesuits to control the economies of the world and playing the money markets to their advantage 100% of the time, because they are the inside traders who never lose on any financial transaction. They always control or manipulate all sides, all parties. More than this, all American presidents since William Howard Taft, the 27th president of the U.S., and responsible for bringing the Federal Reserve Bank into existence. This wicked Luciferian, William Howard Taft. All presidents have been controlled by Jesuit-appointed handlers. They are all papal puppets betraying the American people and the people of the world. The American government is advised and controlled by the Jesuits of Georgetown University through their Vatican agency, the Council on Foreign Relations, established in 1921, 1 year after the League of Nations. Coincidence? I don't think so. They were moving fast early in the 20th century to establish their one world order, their new world order. Can you see the connections of incremental national control by stealth? The CFR was founded by 13 very powerful men who were all Roman Catholic or Jesuit coadjutors, whether secret or open. Men like David Rockefeller, Allen Dulles, Herbert Hoover, Paul Warburg, Edward Mandell House, very important figure, and Walter Lippmann. The CFR relays instructions from Georgetown and dictates American policy. Yes, it does. This brings us to Donald J. Trump, who is the last American president, but in title only. He has been totally controlled by his Jesuit-trained handler and so-called Vice President Mike Pence. That's right. Mike Pence is his handler. The big question here is, how will they use Trump, or the trumpet? They pick people by their names, birth dates, skills, and abilities. There's a whole bunch of things that have to come together for the Jesuits to use somebody. And they have to be able to be used and manipulated, controlled. So how will they use Trump, or the trumpet, now that he and his partner Melania are reportedly ill with COVID-19? Will they kill him off and retire him to a secret island? Or will they resurrect him from the dead? This is the big question. From this deadly disease that kills virtually no one. This Trump COVID thing is an interesting development. One of two things can happen going forward. They kill Trump, secretly retire him, or he gets really sick and they resurrect him from the dead. Either way, the Jesuits have a plan to use Trump and his followers to deconstruct American society and culture, either through violent civil conflict or into deeper deception by making Trump a kind of messiah figure where he offers hope that ultimately gets endlessly deferred. It never happens. So, how is this going to play out? We'll just have to wait and see. But be watching. Because there's only a couple scenarios that can play out here. The Jesuits are using Trump to sway the emotions of dumbed down people. Trump is a psychological operation or psyop against the American people. He is the clown, the jester, the bumbling buffoon, the joker, the Mad Hatter, or any other actor or trickster character out of mythology. That's his role. He is the original flim-flam man, the flipper, who says one thing and then says the opposite a short time later. It's confusion, total confusion. Trump is the confuser, the successful loser, and nobody knows what to make of him. Is he an idiot or is he smart? It's hard to tell. Things we know are this. He was raised in a wealthy Luciferian family and was Jesuit trained at Fordham and Pennsylvania universities. He was a TV celebrity and is a failed businessman, now apparently worth billions. How did that happen? Well, we only have to guess. He was a TV celebrity and is a failed businessman, now apparently worth billions. Trump has the perfect satanic profile to be cultivated as a Jesuit MK Ultra mind-controlled puppet. People are mystified by him, but are attracted to his outward goofy demeanor and false sincerity like moths to a flame. It's inexplicable. It's hard to understand. This is the power of American TV media propaganda over the minds of the American people. This attraction is deadly because behind the laconic smile is a seriously evil deceiver taking the ship down and laughing behind everyone's back all the way. Oh yes, he is. Trump is assisting the Jesuits destroy both the American nation and American fantasy or American dream in real time in front of our eyes. It is of vital importance to understand that Trump ceased to be president on March the 13th, 2020, and that FEMA now rules the USA. Trump is not the president of the USA and has no power. How do I know this? He made this public admission in a speech at the White House. That's how I know. Most people missed it. The video has been deleted by YouTube, and I do not know the original source who originally posted it on YouTube, but I have a recorded copy of it. Here is a transcript from the video, and I quote, FEMA, or the Federal Emergency Management Authority, has more power than the President of the USA or Congress. It has the power to suspend laws, move entire populations, arrest and detain citizens without a warrant, and to hold them without trial. It can seize property, food supplies, transportation systems, and can suspend the Constitution. Well, the Constitution it no longer exists, in effect. So many executive orders have been written by successive presidents that there effectively is no more Constitution. When a state of emergency is declared, Executive Order number 11921, signed by Gerald Ford, allows the Federal Emergency Preparedness Agency to develop plans to establish control over the mechanisms of production and distribution of energy, wages, salaries, credit, and the flow of money in U.S. financial institutions in any undefined national emergency. It also provides that when a state of emergency is declared by the President, Congress cannot review the action for 6 months. Unquote. On March 13th, 2020, this year, after Trump declared a national emergency in a public speech, FEMA took control over the USA. That's right, folks. FEMA is in control of the United States of America. There is no president. Trump stated publicly, and I quote, "This is only the beginning of what we're really doing, and now we're in a different phase. We had some very old and obsolete rules that we had to live with, the Constitution. It worked under certain circumstances, but not under mass circumstances. They were there for a long time, the Constitution. They were in place for a long time, but we're breaking them down now. And they're very usable for certain instances, but not for this. To unleash the full power of the federal government to this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency." Unquote. This document can be found in the links in the description box below. You can read it for yourself. FEMA is in control of the United States. Donald Trump handed over full control at the beginning of the declaration of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is totally fake. So there you go, folks. Out of the mouth of Donald Trump himself, and in his own words, documented. 6 days later, on March the 19th in this year, in a meeting at the National Response Coordination Center with Trump and Pence, the FEMA head says to Trump, "Thank you to Trump for signing the National Emergency Declaration because that has really empowered FEMA," unquote. This is the head of FEMA thanking Trump for handing over all power to FEMA. It's there in words. You can't deny it. On April the 10th this year, Trump declares openly at the White House, and I quote, "The American people have been so disciplined, it's been my honor to be their president. It's been my honor to be their president. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll say it always. It's been my great honor to have been their president." It's unmistakable. This is in the past. It's been my great honor to have been their president. I have a big decision coming up, and I only hope to God that it's the right decision, but it'll be based on the input from a lot of very talented people, FEMA, very smart people, and people that love our country, unquote. No, they don't love America. Under the Jesuits, they are pulling America apart, dismantling it, deconstructing it. So there it is, in Trump's own words. He was president, he no longer is. The coming election is totally bogus, and it's a hoax, it's a scam. It's not real. FEMA is now making all the decisions without Trump. United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo makes a public statement at the White House on May the 12th this year, saying, and I quote, "This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right." Live exercise. The COVID-19 pandemic is a live exercise. Trump says from behind, "You should have let us know." Trump is not in control anymore. FEMA is. Were you aware that, number one, FEMA was created in a series of executive orders by various presidents? A presidential executive order, whether constitutional or not, becomes law simply by its publication in the Federal Registry. Congress is totally bypassed. There is no democratic input. None whatsoever. The president is acting as a dictator. Number two, Executive Order number 12148 created the Federal Emergency Management Agency that is to interface with the Department of Defense for civil defense planning and funding. An emergency SAR was appointed, and this executive order was passed by Jimmy Carter. Number 3, Executive Order number 12656 appointed the National Security Council as the principal body that should consider emergency powers, not the president. This allows the government to increase domestic intelligence and surveillance of U.S. citizens and would restrict the freedom of movement within the United States and grant the government the right to isolate large groups of civilians. The National Guard could be federalized to seal all borders and take control of U.S. airspace and all ports of entry, passed by Ronald Reagan. Number 4, Executive Order number 10990 allows the governments to take over all modes of transportation and control of highways and seaports, passed by John F. Kennedy. Number 5, Executive Order number 10995 allows the government to seize and control the communication media, passed by John F. Kennedy. Executive Order number 10997 allows the government to take over all electrical power, gas, petroleum, fuels, and minerals, passed by John F. Kennedy. Number 7, Executive Order number 10998 allows the government to take over all food resources and farms, passed by John F. Kennedy. Number 8, Executive Order number 11000 allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under government supervision, passed by John F. Kennedy. Number 9, Executive Order 11001 allows the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions, passed by John F. Kennedy. Number 10, Executive Order number 11002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons, census, passed by John F. Kennedy. Number 11, Executive Order number 11003 allows the government to take over all airports and aircraft, including commercial aircraft, passed by John F. Kennedy. Number 12, Executive Order number 11004 allows the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds, designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locations for populations, passed by John F. Kennedy. Executive Order number 11005, number 13, allows the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities, passed by John F. Kennedy. Number 14, Executive Order number 11051 specifies the responsibility of the Office of Emergency Planning and gives authorization to put all executive orders into effect in times of increased international tensions and economic or financial crisis, passed by John F. Kennedy. Did you think John F. Kennedy was a hero to the American people? Far from it. He was busy passing legislation, executive orders, that enabled a dictator to take control of the American nation and enslave it. That's what all these presidents were doing. Number 15, Executive Order number 11310 grants authority to the Department of Justice to enforce the plans set out in executive orders to institute industrial support, to establish judicial and legislative liaison to control all aliens, to operate penal and correctional institutions, passed by Lyndon B. Johnson. Number 16, Executive Order number 11049 assigns emergency preparedness function to federal departments and agencies, consolidating 21 operative executive orders issued over a 15-year period, passed by John F. Kennedy. Many American presidents have issued executive orders since the first one in 1789 issued by George Washington. And that is how the Jesuits, from behind the scenes, have taken control over America through legal processes. George W. Bush issued 291 executive orders between 2001 and 2009, more than any other American president. Barry Davis, aka Barack Obama, created 276 executive orders during his 2 terms. The Jesuits used him to finalize the removal of all American freedoms. That's what Barack Obama was doing. That's what George W. Bush was doing. All executive orders are unconstitutional in the sense that people have no say, no vote in these executive orders, and they don't need to be ratified by Congress. This effective abuse of executive orders gives the American president the autocratic powers of a dictator. Effectively, it handles all power of the American president to the shadow hidden hand behind the president, his handler, and away from any kind of democratic process where the American people have any choice. In 1917, Woodrow Wilson was used to pass the Trading with the Enemy Act, which really opened the door to Jesuitical power over the American people. 1917. In Wikipedia, the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917 is a United States federal law enacted on October 6, 1917, that gives the President of the United States the power to oversee or restrict any and all trade between the United States and its enemies in times of war. The TWEA was amended in 1933 by the Emergency Banking Act to extend, under Roosevelt, FDR, to extend the President's authority also in peacetime. It was amended again in 1977 by the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or the IEEPA, to restrict the application of TWEA only in times of war, while the IEEPA was intended to be used in peacetime. Well, that power is increasingly being abused. America has been under military rule since 1933, when FDR, or Roosevelt, passed Executive Order number 6102 in 1933, which built on the TWTEA of 1917. It is clear that presidential abuse under the prompting of the Jesuits of the privilege of issuing executive orders has been used to the Jesuits' advantage in destroying freedom and prosperity in America from behind the scenes. No doubt about this. It's all documented. Can't argue with me. I'm presenting the facts. You can either accept them or reject them. It's your choice. Executive Order 6102 in Wikipedia states, it's an executive order signed on April the 5th, 1933 by U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, forbidding the hoarding of gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates within the continental United States. The executive order was made under the authority of the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, as amended by the Emergency Banking Act in March 1933. This executive order effectively took away the right of any Americans to own gold. If you think you own gold now, you don't. You own a gold certificate. There is no gold behind that gold certificate, should you try to cash it in. Now, you may own small pieces of gold coinage, but effectively it is still illegal to own gold in the USA in any quantity. That's just a fact. That stands today. These two presidential orders were used by the Jesuits to institute military rule, and the American population is under military rule and has been since 1933. How do you know? How can you tell? Just look at any American flag in a governmental place, and you can see the gold fringe around the flag. This indicates military jurisdiction, military rule. That's a fact. So, since 1933, the Americans have been under military rule, and they used this to take control of the courts and the military. Since 1933, you have not been living in a democracy if you're an American citizen. It has been all downhill since 1933, but the Jesuits maintained the illusion of freedom and economic prosperity for 75 years by printing more fiat currency through their Federal Reserve, so that nearly 4 generations of Americans took it for granted and then became addicted to material wealth, material prosperity, fake material prosperity. It is a false prosperity built on debt to the Vatican banks. Americans have become enslaved by debt servitude to Rome's financial system. Not only Americans, though, the whole world is in debt to Roman banks. This all because of the Jesuit-controlled central banks put into every country. Debt is being used to leverage every nation into the Roman New World Order digital money system, which is just about to happen. Going to happen maybe or just around before or after the time that the Mark of the Beast vaccine is rolled out. They have to coincide or connect within a reasonably short period of time in order for the chips in the mark to be scanned and to be used on the blockchain money system for digital money transactions. This is how it's going to work. Listen to what another papal stooge American president said. In George H.W. Bush's Toward a New World Order speech in 1990, he states, and I quote, "A new world order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders," unquote. He said in the same speech, and I quote, "When we have our new world order, and we will," unquote, he was right because he knew the plan. He was an insider and knew what was going to transpire internationally and was 100% confident of its success. Bush saw how he was made president and knew the power of the shadow one world government in world affairs. Remember, Bush was a member of Skull and Bones, which is a Jesuit-founded secret society. Very secret, but not secret. What new world order is Bush referring to? Well, the Roman Catholic Fourth Beast Empire described in the prophetic book of Daniel. That's what. The Jesuit Vatican New World Order beast government is here now and getting ready to mark every living soul with their 3-in-1 biometric synthetic DNA morphing smart infrared tattoo implant. Do not be deceived into taking it. In every one of my videos, I've been warning about this, and I'm warning again. If you're listening to this, do not take this COVID-19 miracle cure vaccine. It is irreversible. You cannot reverse the effects of this vaccine. Donald Trump, 45th and last president of the United States, was pre-selected by the Jesuits to play president long ago, not elected by the American people. This is why the Trump scenarios created by high Freemason, cartoonist, and elite insider Matt Groening in the Simpsons TV series could show scenes a decade before they came to pass in real life. He was told what to put into his storyboards. It is called predictive programming. Hollywood does it incessantly in all their movies. They are predictively programming the minds of the public. It's a form of dark magic, a wicked spell. We are here and have been living in an increasingly scripted reality, people. A matrix, a mind matrix, a psychological delusion, if you like, since the 1960s and the explosion of TV channels and programming in every home in North America. We have been programmed to believe what we see and hear on TV. Plain and simple. It's all propaganda and mind control of the masses. George Bush Jr. could state emphatically, without flinching, in an interview before he became president, when questioned by a journalist, "What if you don't win?" "Oh, I will," he said. And he did. All presidents are groomed into wickedness and chosen, not elected by the people. This is the same for every country. Elections are a carefully staged psychological operation in every so-called free country to perpetuate the illusion of freedom and choice. It's an illusion. It doesn't exist. Donald Trump is just one more lying, deceiving Judas goat, papal puppet that has sold the American people further into subjugation and slavery without them realizing it. He's no longer a president of any kind, yet he still parades for the media as if he was. It's a deception. He is following a Jesuit written script and is a wicked actor and deceiver, maintaining the illusion of presidential leadership, democracy, and the American dream. It's all a fantasy. Trump is a satanic Pied Piper leading the godless and naive into a pagan high-tech vaccine ritual, initiating them into low-tech slavery and eternal damnation in Satan's Jesuitical kingdom of the beast. This is all biblical, and it's found in the book of Revelation, people. Read it for yourself. The end goal of this whole New World Order program by the Jesuit military order is singular. Vaccinate the whole world, starting with the USA, and genetically modify or evolve the human race with artificial or synthetic implants. In creating a new species of mutant hybrid humans, fashioned no longer in the image of God, but in the image of the beast, Satan's image, God must reject and punish them, those who take the mark of the beast, for the wickedness that they have become. There are many competing voices offering strange or outlandish ideas on the internet about what the mark of the beast is and who the Antichrist is. The answers to these questions aren't difficult to work out. They are found in the Bible. I have done my best to explain what these are, but it is up to you, the listener, to study God's Word and pray and ask God to show you the truth. If you are sincere and open, He will show you in due time. How do I know this? Well, God promises this in many scriptures, that He will show the truth to those who wait upon Him. He will do this. If you are listening to this video and are in the Roman religious ecumenical system or any organized religion, then I urge you strongly to get out and find forgiveness for your sins in Jesus Christ. Only He can save you. Only Christ's perfect blood shed on the cross for all can atone for your sins. Religious organizations, no matter what they promise, can't save you and will separate you from God eternally. That's a warning. Bible says so. I'm just repeating what the Bible says so. Dear listener, if you're not a Christian, Jesus Christ is the only way, the truth, and the life to eternal salvation. There is no other way to the Father, God, except through His Son, Jesus Christ. It says so in John chapter 14 and verse 6. If you have not yet repented of your sins and been born again of the water and the Spirit, then I urge you to do so quickly. Time's running out. If you haven't turned away from your rebellion against God, then I urge you now to save yourself, because no one is coming to rescue you from the beast system that is rising right now. No one. No one's coming to rescue you. Only Jesus Christ can rescue you. This is spiritual. Time is running out rapidly. I believe there are only months and maybe just weeks until the beast vaccine is rolled out worldwide in order to bring this pandemic to a halt and to start the New World Order beast system. Find God now and get right with Him before it's too late. The end really is in sight. I'll put a link in the description box to my website where you can learn how to get saved and become a child of God. God is waiting for you if you are ready to turn away from the world and from sin. Thank you for listening, And I pray that God will continue to open your eyes as you search for the truth on all things. I'll put pertinent links in the description box below. Please share this information with others as you're able, so that many more might be awakened to the reality of this evil world system. I hope to see you in the next video, but should, for any reason, I be prevented, then I pray God's blessing for you in the perilous days that lie ahead. God bless you.